Energy. It is all around us, both seen and unseen. It affects all the lives within humanity, our great planet Earth, and the entire universe. It is a conscious cosmic matrix, an ever-evolving cycle, creating, breaking down, and recreating. This is Connected with your host, Andrea Dragonfly. Andrea tells us that energy is the foundation of our human experience, intrinsically affecting every facet of our lives, our perceptions, choices, and actions, as well as the challenges, opportunities, and people we attract. So now, please welcome the host of Connected, Andrea Dragonfly.
Hey, welcome. Welcome to the show Connected, where everything we talk about is connected in some way. And so today actually also is August 1, which is Lammas, which is part of the cycles. We've been talking about cycles of the year. And we started talking about cycles 6 weeks ago at summer solstice, so June 20th. And here we are 6 weeks later, and we've come to what would be considered to be midsummer. So we're 6 weeks in on summer, and we have 6 weeks to go before we come to fall equinox. And so this is that first harvest. And the first harvest is like we look at our lives, we look at our life as something that we've been working with, right? And we planted some sort of intention at the beginning of the year. We're looking at the opportunity now to look back over the last several months to see how have I grown within my relationships, within my work environment, within any type of, self development that I've been putting myself through. This is the time for us to look back and reflect. And it's our first harvest. We begin to look at how have I grown? How have I changed? What lessons have I learned, up to this point? And of course, there's more. We're still just at the very first harvest. And so when we move into the fall in 6 weeks from now, we're going to really begin to look at what am I learning? But it's all about being aware and conscious of it, right? And so I just wanted to welcome you into midsummer and remind you to take a look. Take a look at your life in this last year in particular. And what have you already began to harvest within you of some sort of wisdom, some sort of lessons, some sort of aha moments or anything like that? And as I look back on my life, I was like, wow, this is a pretty abundant first harvest for me because I've been getting so much information over the last few weeks, in particular, last 6 weeks, especially, of just information about what I planted at the beginning of this season. And so, and it's just kind of coming in and it's just been really powerful. So I wanted just to acknowledge that, bring it into your awareness so you can look at that for yourself. And again, I didn't mention this, but I'm Andrea Dragonfly. I'm your host. And if you're new to the channel, great, welcome. It's great to have you here. And if you are a regular here, I love it. Welcome back. And we are going to continue our conversation of karmic loops. And we're really going to focus on insanity and how these karmic loops can really drive us into this place of insanity. So we're going to look at that. However, like every episode, I do a little review. And so we're going to take a few minutes to take time to kind of bring us back into the conversation. And so we're looking at these karmic intimate relationships. And within this intimate relationship, there's this very kind of activated connection when we meet somebody. And when we meet somebody, we're fascinated by them, we're drawn to them, and everything is good at that time, right? We don't have any knowledge that they're even a karmic relationship at that point. And then there's this powerful kind of like activation of the bond that begins to happen. And then we get drawn into them. And usually we begin to have another relationship with them from past life. So this is kind of bringing us to this lifetime, right? And the karmic relationship and why we have these loops is because in the original relationship, however many lifetimes ago, because again, this is something that happens every time we come into reconnecting with this person throughout multiple lives. And so some of us could have like 20 different loops that we've been looping, 20 different times, 20 different lives that we've been meeting this person over and over again. And we're still ending that relationship with some sort of pain, sorrow, grief, some sort of ending that hasn't been completed yet. And that's the opportunity. And when we come and we meet these people in these lifetimes, we are, again, drawn to them. And usually what is happening is that whatever happened in the very first lifetime, the very first meeting of these two people, we're going to call it the original relationship. And we're also going to call it the original wound of that relationship, because it's that wound that wants to be healed, that keeps bringing us back to each other through each of these lifetimes. So in the original relationship, there is, again, the drawing in, the connection. And then usually at some point in the relationship, something happens. And it could also feel like a betrayal of sort. And betrayal is a very wide, scope of different things that can happen, right? We can see many things as betrayal. And so that betrayal could be, even look in your own life and what has shown up for you as betrayal. It could be leaving you to go be with another person. It could be whatever, there's so many scenarios, right? So it could just like really deeply putting all of your trust and your faith and your love into somebody, and innumerable, events could happen where that betrayal can be incredibly damaging to a person. And so when we can even look at this in all of our stories and our movies and how betrayal works amongst people. And sometimes it's going to show up, especially in these intimate partnerships. But as we go through these lifetimes, we're not always in the same gender. We can usually, in the way that I have come to learn, it doesn't necessarily mean this is always true, because it's not always true, but that we will have the original gender in which the relationship was first created and where the first betrayal happened. And then even in the next lifetime, we could be role reversal, we could have different genders, but it's still going to have something that has the common denominator, the common scenario. And of course, through lifetimes, everything's changing. Cultures can be changing. Of course, there's different times of humanity that's changing. So we're going to have all sorts of different types of energetics playing out, different scenarios and circumstances. But it's really the same kind of story that is either like, giving of oneself into that relationship, and then the betrayal happens, and then there's this place of, I can't forgive you. And we are wounded. And when we have that betrayal, what also happens is a soul loss. And that soul loss is that piece of us, a piece of our soul, that when we're all perfectly aligned, we have access to our power. It's a part of our power, our strength, our confidence, our self-knowing, our self-worth, our self-value, all these parts of us that are really, kind of activated, and we know who we are in the world, and we can persevere, we can overcome anything when all of us, all the parts of us are ignited and are activated. We're powerful people in that way. But when we have a wound, and a wound around love in particular, there's some of that power that turns off. And we think about, like, I'm going to describe it like a circuit board, right? And the circuit board, if everything is on, and let's just, everything is on and fully powered up, we are activated, all of our light is shining, and we are these incredible beings. But then we have these things that happen, these wounds that happen to us, and sometimes, most often, they're in our personal relationships. So they can be our partners, but we can get wounds anywhere. We can get wounds from our best friends, from our teachers, from, different types of predators and violators, all sorts of things. And so when there's a piece of us that has been wounded, it's like that part of us turns off. That part of us is no longer accessible. And so we can't reach that strength part, that confidence part, that knowing of our self-worth or self-value, that part of us that really is empowering. And so then we go through these lifetimes without that energetic activated in us. So for example, the very first original relationship wound, right? Somebody gets betrayed, and then the person is like, I can never forgive you. And because this was so painful to me, I'm never going to love that way again. I'm never going to fully give myself in a way that I can be wounded like this again because it's too painful and I just can't do it. And so that part of us that totally knows how to love in the most deep, profound way turns offline. And so now we're kind of left in this contract that we've made with some divine force. I call it the keeper of the contracts. And we are now operating in this contract that says, I'm never going to fully love in that way because it's too painful. And really the way we do that is because we want to protect ourselves. We want to protect our hearts. We want to protect our emotions so that we don't have to do that again. But in the process, we don't have access to true love in these other lifetimes or that deep, profound love relationship. So if anybody out there watching this and feeling this and felt like, oh yeah, I've had these relationships, or my significant relationship in this lifetime has never really hit that true, deep, powerful love, there might be something going on within your energy field that's been offline and may need a soul retrieval. And so this is how these karmic loops work. And then we move into the next lifetime. And then however the dynamic is playing out, something will happen, the betrayal will happen, and we're going to feel that exactly the way we felt it in the very first original experience, the original wound. So we're going to feel it. So it's what happens is that we then become imprinted. It becomes an imprint into our energy field, our etheric energy field. And we carry these imprints with us in every lifetime. So when I call it an imprint, I want you to think about it as like a record, like a little record, and it's, if we think about vinyl records, for all of us who used to grow up with vinyl and whatnot, there's that program in the vinyl that's going to play it out exactly the same way, but it's emotional, it's karmic. We're going to feel it in the energy body. The scenario and the situation and even our gender role can be very different, but it's going to operate within us in the same disempowering way. And so it becomes like this little record that is now imprinted into our energy field. And that vibration is like, this person is a very key player in me turning on that lost part of myself, turning that back on, bringing it forward. And that part of us, it's still within our energy field, but it's offline. It's just not activated, right? So we want to be able to really kind of work on that and figure out, how do we activate that? And this is a shamanic practice. I know this through the shamanic healing modalities, which is called soul retrieval. So this is the soul loss. I talked last week about how there's many ways we can lose a piece of ourselves through, pain, struggle, suffering, a person dying and giving a part of ourselves to that person. But oftentimes someone can either take it from us, like a violator, a perpetrator, or we are in an experience where we really have that deep heart wound or deep emotional wound in some way, that betrayal. Right. And I'm sure there's more ways too. Those are just like the most dominant ways. Or you talked about accidents and car accidents or falling off a horse, or mechanical accidents where you're using big machinery and you lose fingers. We can have a soul loss and retrieval around that because there's this fear. And that person becomes fearful. They never want to work with that machine again. They never want to get back on that horse. They don't want to ever drive in that area where that accident was because there's a soul loss there. Right? There's a disempowerment, a fear that comes up. And so we're looking at this soul retrieval piece. And through the shamanic practice, we're looking at how we can go back into these energy fields and turn it back on. Now, I know that there's many ways we can do this. However, if you're not really familiar how to work with energy and how to really kind of get into your own energy body and turn that back on, then I highly recommend to go find somebody, right? And by all means, you can reach out to me and on my website, and we can also have that conversation and see what's needed, because this is exactly the area of work in which I I thrive in, which is where I work. So, but of course, many other people just like me as well. So you can even look to see, who's in your who's local, but this type of work doesn't even need to be local. This is all on the quantum level, all on the energetic. And so we can do it in any way. So this is just kind of a quick review, and we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break. So if you need to grab anything, please do. And when we get back, we're going to start to dive into the hero's journey again and start talking about the next part of the cycle that brings us into that place of what we can consider to be insanity. So I'll see you back here in 2.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back. Okay, yes. So we're talking about soul loss and soul retrieval. And again, I also want to just say that there are other ways that we can actually turn those parts of us back on, ignite them, activate them. And a lot of that can be through meditation. It is a spiritual practice. And this is an awareness, actually. When we become aware, we expand our consciousness. We can start to say, what do I need? How do I do this? And so this is where we can also reach out to people. We can say, please help me. I need some help here, right? And it's really important. So when we're looking at these karmic loops, what I found, and what I want to say is that everybody is different. And I'm speaking to a story that I've experienced. And I think I mentioned earlier that even in my astrology chart, my moon, which is about my relationships, my intimate partnerships, actually falls in the 8th house of karmic relationships. So my whole life has had karmic relationships. So it's also important to mention that even within these karmic relationships, not all of them are looping for me in the same way. Okay, there's some karmic relationships that don't have loops, and there's some karmic relationships that do have loops. And the karmic relationships that I know that I'm looping in, and I have 2 of them actually, one of them that is completely solved, and one of them that I'm working in right now. So when I talked about when I first invited everybody to look at Lamas and what are you learning, I'm learning so much about the current karmic loop that I'm in right now with my current person. And so there's a lot happening. And so when I talk about, I'm all about the karmic loop. I know a lot about it. And one of the other things that showed up for me, like even with my first, even with my my ex-husband. There's a karmic loop there. However, in that relationship with my ex-husband, I am in the place where it's not, I can't clear that loop because I already sit in the most unconditional love, compassion, forgiveness for him. And there, so the loop is actually on his side. And of course, he's also not at the same level of spiritual practice. He doesn't also even believe a lot of this stuff. So he and I may have many lifetimes where he's growing and he's evolving. And in each lifetime that may become more and more, of an opportunity for him. And bless his heart, and I love him. He's actually a huge part of my life. And he and I have a great relationship. However, he just doesn't necessarily understand me very well because I've chosen a very powerful spiritual path, and that's not something that really resonated with him. And that's one of the reasons why we had to part and go different ways, right? So, but even in that relationship, it's like, if he holds any animosity towards me, if he feels hurt by me still and hasn't felt the true sense of everything is complete, then he and I will find each other again in another relationship, in another lifetime, to give him the opportunity to really complete that for himself. In this lifetime, I'm complete. I love him fully, wholly, everything. So in my energetic field, I'm not feeling him in the same way. And I don't even know if he's feeling that for me. I'm just guessing, right? I'm just guessing on that. So there's these other relationships that I've had that, if it's the other person who still has something unresolved with me from a previous, relationship, partnership, then, then it might be they're the one that has to do the deep soul excavation to find out what is that, because this is where we're moving in to that place of insanity. What is it that connects me to you, that completely activates me in a way that I can't let you go? That even though you drive me crazy, and we've gone through this crazy, however long your relationship was. And again, the relationship could have even been like 3 months, and it could have been 3 years, and it could be 30 years. I don't know. But the thing is that there's something in that relationship that is disempowering, and it really continues to bring each person into conflict. There's a conflict energy that is like is kind of like at the root or the core. But even so, and you're like, there's something, I don't want that conflict there. I want to be totally without that conflict. And so we're looking at that place that says, so that's the energy cord. And we look at how this begins to play out within that constant conflict that's kind of underlying everything. So we're going to bring back the hero's journey chart. I hope that today might be the last day. I was talking with my team, my engineer team, and about how we're talking about insanity, and about and even just the joke about insanity. It's like where you do the same thing over and over and over again and expect different results. This is what we're looking at. We've been using the same graph over and over and over again. However, we're going to have different results here. So when we're looking at this, we're really looking in that last week we left off when we talked about right in that bottom corner where it says ascent and the magic flight, and it says rescue from without. And so this is like where we're like going to other people, help, whether it's a therapist, whether it's an energy healer, whether it's a shamanic wisdom, teacher, keeper, whomever, right? A medicine man or a woman, wherever you are. And maybe it's a doctor, who knows? But we're going somewhere outside of ourselves to get support. Maybe it's, also the family, it's our community. And we're trying to really figure out why is this, why can't I let this person go? And so when I think about my first karmic loop that I really became deeply aware of, we had a 2-year kind of relationship that was really intense. But we were oil and water. There was nothing about our lives that actually worked. we just had this really crazy magnetism. And it was also like our communities weren't, aligned, our belief systems weren't aligned, everything about our lives weren't aligned. And so we knew that, like, for me, choosing this person to be my partner was like, no, we don't get along. We get along here, but we don't get, like, the rest of our life doesn't get along here, right? And so there's no way we are going to make it through this relationship. And so when we really finally broke away from each other, there was this energy cord. It was like the energy cord between us. And if you ever heard about cord clearing, and this is where we have energy between two people. It's like this energy cord. It's like a karmic cord. And it just begins to buzz. And, for 3 months would go by and this person would come into my field. And I'd be like, oh, why is this person in my field? And then I would give them love and compassion and forgiveness because I knew that those were the tools. I'm like, okay, love, compassion, forgiveness, get out of my energy field. And then I would clear them on my energy field. And then 3 months later, they would come back into my energy field and activate me because I knew also that I was wounded and that I was angry, and that even though I wanted them out of my life, I still, there was still something connecting us. And so this went on for literally 5 years. And every 3 months, and there were sometimes we would reach out to each other and we would communicate. And it never was actually very positive or good. And I was always left with the same feeling. Oh, you frustrate me. Why did I reach out? What good did I think that was going to do? And then there would be a couple of years where we didn't communicate at all. And then we'd come back after that couple of years, communicate again. So this is that. So when we go from the rescue without and we move up that cycle to the death of dreams, the black moment, the dark night of the soul, and the realization, this is where that insanity starts to build. Why? Why is that energy cord still activated? Why is it continuing to pull me back to this person? Why can't I just let this person go? I've never had problems letting other people go. Why can't I let this person go? So there's this realization that is much bigger. And now it's starting to create this place of like, what do I need to do differently, right? And so now for me, this lasted 5 years. This was the dark night of my soul, but it was like me walking in the shadow. This was my shadow work for really 7 years from the beginning of that relationship, because it was so strong. But even at the very beginning of that relationship, it didn't work, right? We completely activated each other's shadow. And so that shadow is those parts of us that are, feeling that we are defensive or angry or upset or resentful, or all of those lower vibrational energies. So but we still were like, almost, again, I talked about addicted to each other, almost, it was like, compulsive energy that brought us together, and knowing that it wasn't healthy, knowing that, oh my God, this is the most toxic relationship I've ever had. Why can't I let it go? And that's what I'm talking about within some of these relationships. It can look like that. Now, again, I want to say that there are more than 8 billion people on the planet. We are each our very own unique, masterpiece. And every one of us is going to have a different way of experiencing this, a different story, a different, scenario. So I'm offering this to you to help look at it within how maybe this had shown up for you. And if this isn't part of your life in this life incarnation, you may know other people that this is part of their life. So this is also just good information for you to be with it, so you can kind of sort of understand what they might be going through, because oftentimes we have no idea why people do what they do, even though we can see it and say, oh my God, dear, you need to get out of that relationship. Why do you keep going back? And this is what this is. They don't even know why they keep coming back, but there's that such a strong draw that they can't help it, right? So we're going to take another quick break. And when we get back here, we're going to dive more into the insanity. So I'll see you back here in 2.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. Yeah, it feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Okay, welcome back. Okay, so we're looking at the beginning of insanity, right? So why am I continuing to be drawn to this person? Even if I am off into a new relationship, this person's energy cord is still kind of operating over here saying, hey, there's something unresolved here. Unresolved. And of course, within that unresolved is that I haven't fully transform the way I feel about them. I'm still upset. I'm still angry. I'm still making them wrong, right? And that's the key. If we're making them wrong and we're still upset and angry, we're not going to clear the loop. That's what continues to bring us to each incarnation over and over and over again. That's the loop, the continued way of doing the same thing over and over and over again, which means I can't forgive you. I can't accept you. I can't love you. I can't whatever, right? Whatever it is for each person. Again, there's so many of us. We're all going to have our own unique way of doing this or having this happen, whether, again, this lifetime or the people that we know, if it's not this lifetime, and other people, however they're doing it. It's going to look different for every person, right? However, then it's like, okay, now I work with energy. Clearly, my whole life has had these amazing opportunities and moments, and I've been guided my whole life ever since I was young. And so I have energy talks to me, and we talk all the time. I use them. I work with them. When I work with my clients, I work with energy. I can't do my work without them. So I have a very powerful relationship with energy. So I have these different energy beings that I work with, and they're like, okay, but they don't tell me anything. They just say, you can do this. You got this. You're so close, right? So this and this and this how, like, you see my fingers. It's just like this energy that's like telling me, always comes from this left side, that, they're encouraging me. You're so close. You're almost there. I never knew about this prior, but I guess maybe I didn't have, and of course we have spiritual amnesia every time we go into a new lifetime. So we don't remember all of our lifetimes unless we're very well practiced and we wake up early from, the illusion around us into consciousness and recognize, oh, let me check out what my lifetimes have been like. Right. So anyway, so within this place, it would be like, what do I need to do different? Okay. And I already talked about this. 5 years. unconditional love, compassion, forgiveness. And I've, in that time frame, I worked with a few powerful wisdom teachers at the time, a Lakota teacher, and then I had my Western esoteric teachers, like 2 of them. And so even within that time frame, you know, they were even telling me, they were saying, Andrea, don't choose this person because this person is not your person. They don't match your frequency. They're not where you're at. You are on this other mission in life. They're not there. They're not going to help you. Because I was at this point, I'm like, well, maybe I just need to choose them. Maybe I need to choose them. Even though our lives absolutely have nothing in common. And that if I chose them, I might even be in this place where I might be self-sacrificing or any of that type of place. So we're going to bring in the image again. I'm going to turn it to the world navel once again, because we're moving ourselves up to that 3rd threshold, the sacrifice, right? So moving up from death of dreams, black moment, dark night of the soul, we're moving into the 3rd threshold that says, well, what is it about me? What do I have to let go of? And it comes down to the ego. It's that part of my ego that says, I need to be right. I can't see how you could ever fit into my life. My life would have to look incredibly different if you and I were ever to really make this happen. And so I moved into this place of like, could I do this? And then I'd be like, no. That person is not good for me. That person's toxic. I'm putting all the blame on them, right? Because by all means, I can't be responsible for the toxicity, even though, of course, I am, right? So kind of the blame goes to the other person. And, but of course, all this is such huge awakening information about my own self, about my own darkness, my own shadow. This was my 7 years of walking in the shadow, looking at how I couldn't take responsibility for my part. Look at me. I have all these wisdom teachers. It can't be me. Oh, wait a minute. Here's my biggest test of my life, right? So we move into that place of sacrifice about what is it about my ego? Oh, I had to kill my ego. But I didn't know how to really do that even, right? And everybody's telling me, no, Andrea, this isn't your person. And I'm like, well, I don't know how to, I feel like I'm so close, but I don't know what to do. So here we were moving into these ends of the 5 years, right? So all is happening 3 years. I'm still sitting in this place. I certainly have no idea how it would ever work out in my favor or how it ever actually benefit me. But I just know I need to let go of this person. And then that moment, so part of that sacrifice, part of this is still that insanity, but then the true insanity really came in, right? So it's like everybody's telling me, no, Andrea, this is not your person. That there's nothing about this relationship that's going to serve me in this lifetime. We are so far opposite. There's nothing here. And I know I'm saying this over and over and over again, right? And so I have, it's springtime and I have herb gardens as I'm part, I use herbs as part of my medicine. And so herb gardens, wonderful yard. I'm out in the yard and I often go to my yard because this is where we work with our energy team. And my energy team are these amazing medicinal plants. There's the earth guardians and energies of the earth, the trees, the wind, everything, right? I'm connected to all of it. And I'm in there and I'm starting to really process this and say, what is it that I don't know that I don't know? Remember, I talked about this way back in episode 3 or 4 or whatever episode. What do I not know that I don't know, right? And so I start to go while I'm weeding into what I would call like a rabbit hole, like Alice in Wonderland, right? Or even like a wormhole, because it was definitely not within this earthly realm. It was like going through all of these different dimensions, these different lifetimes, right? And I feel absolutely insane. I feel like because of course I'm traveling interdimensionally, and we don't normally do that in this earth consciousness, right? We don't even know. Oftentimes most people have no idea what that's even like, but I'm going through this wormhole and I'm going through and I'm experiencing insanity in such a profound way that I'm like, holy shit, am I fucking insane? Excuse my language, but that's exactly what it is. I'm going insane. So we're moving from that sacrifice up to that next place, up to the showdown, up to the climax, up to that moment that says, what is this all about? I surrender. I don't know. I can't do anything more. I've done everything I know I can do. Love, compassion, forgiveness. Do I, accept this person? Do I not accept this person? Because that part of me, still that ego in me said, no, I can't really accept this person. I cannot accept this person. And it was in that moment of the absolute insanity, even with all my wisdom teachers and everything, that said, no, I have to accept this person. It's almost like, again, that sacrifice. I give up everything of who I am. I give up even whatever, but I choose this person because I never chose that person because of the conflict, because of the pain, because of all the crazy crap that came down in that relationship. And I chose that person in that moment when it made no sense to choose them. And in that moment of truly choosing them on the soul level, everything shifted. And when I say everything shifted, I'm weeding, and the weeds, and there's dandelions, and I shit you not, they began to celebrate. It's almost like their little dandelion heads had little dandelion spirits in them. And they're like, yes, you've done it. And then the grass was like, yes. And then the herbs around me were like, yes. And the trees and the birds and the light was shining in. And you know how we have we have these images of the sun shining through the clouds, and it's like, and there's this monumental moment. And the monumental moment was the true nature of me going through insanity, knowing that I couldn't ever choose them, but getting to the moment. And now I'm at the other side. I went through insanity to the other side of choice and said, I choose this person for exactly who they are and exactly who they're not, in all of their glory and all of their faults, in every aspect of them, as exactly the wounds that they carry and everything. I choose them. I choose them as my partner. And everything shifted immediately. The feeling that came up inside me, I don't even know. I mean, you don't know how to articulate these monumental experiences. But what I know that happened is the karmic loop of many lifetimes dissolved in that moment. And the thing about that, though, is that we still weren't in a place in our lives where we could ever be together. And it didn't work for us to be together, but because I went there into the depth of my core, chose them, I finally freed myself from lifetimes of the loop. Because the original wound, when and I talked about this last time, there was a betrayal. I was the man, they were the women, and we had the love child, and the love child died. And this is tracking it through the field and tracking it with my colleague who helped me track it through the field, and looking at this from this place. And it was when that had happened, I completely said, no, I could never choose you again. And now, lifetimes later, even though it didn't work, and even though every lifetime had insurmountable challenges and difficulties and everything that said, no, I can't choose you ever, then finally I chose them and cleared that loop. And then I don't have, it's not like have to's, there's no have to's, but in this lifetime, it doesn't work for us to be together. But by now clearing the karma, we may never need to be together again in the future. I love this person so much, so immensely. And I was so wounded for 7 years by this person that I couldn't love them. But through that process, It's like this person was monumental. They taught me the depth of love, the depth of acceptance, the depth that we're all uniquely on our individual journeys, that we're all going to have all sorts of different parts of ourselves that sometimes are really unlovable even, right? And so we're moving into that place, and that is when we get to the other side of sanity, of insanity, and we finally move through. And we're gonna skip our last commercial. Usually we have one more here, but we're gonna skip it, and I'm gonna keep talking because there's a few more pieces I really want to land into before the end of our time together. And so this is also that part, the other side of insanity, the other part, like, and when I was in that place of insanity, when I was in that place of like, what is real, what is not real, how do I do this? Am I, how does this all work? Now, of course, I've worked with many indigenous teachers, wisdom keepers, shamans, medicine men and women. This is what it's all about. Insanity is a social construct. It's a psychological construct. Of course, people can get stuck in insanity because their reality is different than the common reality of the people. And when I was going through it like a tunnel, like just lights and crazy, energy coming at me, yeah, I was afraid. I was afraid, like, what if I get stuck here? Right? And I just said, there's so much to this cosmic universe. There's so much more to the reality of the social common reality of this, of this world, of this realm, right? Of this dimension, right? The one that we all share collectively. But our realities are all uniquely our own. We live under common realities, but then our realities are based on our life experiences and what we're connected to, right? Not everybody lives the reality. My reality is I connect to energy. I communicate with energy. I use energy. They communicate to me, and they guide me, and they will guide me in ways that I am astounded by. Like, oh wow, I was just told to do this. I'm going to go do that, right? That's how my life has been with them. And so in that place of that insanity, oftentimes we can get lost there. And this is also why it's so important to have our ancient traditions still be an integral part of our modern day, is because in our current day psychology, they don't look at that. They don't understand that. They give drugs for that. They, if we get into these places, let me give you an anxiety or antidepressant or whatever, you know what I mean? And it's like there's reasons that we need to go through these things. There's powerful opportunities for us to clear ourselves in these loops and these energy ties that we have to other people. And I know for many people, like, this is really new information. This doesn't necessarily always compute. It doesn't make sense. It's like, hey, we haven't been taught this. It's not part of our common collective reality and understanding. It's not exoteric information, which means exoteric is already written saying, here, look at this, read this, know this. We don't learn about this in our families, in our schools, institutions, and churches and things like that for the most part. But this is the ancient wisdom. This has been the know for so long. And it's like we are cosmic energy. And it was like going through all of that to get to the other side, to get through to this amazing realization. And even though I made the choice, it freed me to have the life of love that I couldn't have prior. Now, it's also important to say that the soul retrieval, I did soul retrievals. I think I did 7 of them with my colleagues, so that I could really come back and access that part of myself that was empowered, that knew love, that knew the depth of love, that knew the profound expansiveness of love, right? So that was all there. that all came, I had to get that back first, so that when I went through insanity to the other side of it, I could fully realize it. I could fully feel it. It was like a freedom, a liberation. Again, words can't really even articulate how that works, right? But in that moment, everything shifted, everything changed, and never again did I have that karmic pull. All I was left with, even though I was praying for unconditional love, compassion, and forgiveness, all that I was left with was the most profound love for that person, whom I still love, who I'm still connected to, who I still talk with on occasion. They have their life now, and I have my life, and but we couldn't have the same relationship that we have now without that whole process happening. There would have been hardship, there would have been animosity, there would have been resentment, and we would have done it all over again in another lifetime. So this is what it can look like. And again, that's the climax. So then we go to the resurrection. So we're looking at the resurrection. We're looking at the master of two worlds, the incorporation, which is what's highlighted on the screen here. And so that freedom, that freeing ourselves and moving ourselves into a whole nother trajectory of life and of an awareness that we could have never known beforehand. So moving up to the very top is that fourth threshold, the freedom to live. And the freedom, when you know something like this, you will never not know it again. It's the aha moment. It's the pivotal moment. It's the moment that that shifts us, levels us up, takes us to a whole nother level of experiencing life, of experiencing love, of experiencing, again, that love, compassion, forgiveness, and all of the high vibrational energies that come with that. And so we have a freedom to live in a much higher energy state, lifting ourselves up. And I'm also in another karmic loop with my current partner, and working on that and really looking at it like I could say I'm in the place of insanity right now, of knowing that there's something here that needs to be shifted, and what really is that, right? And because once I know it the first time, now I know it the second time, the process is so much faster, right? And that we can really look at what were the pieces from the first original wound that needed to be healed, how can we heal them, and how can we rise above that. And the conflict has been whatever the conflict has been, but it's that different choice. It's making the different choice, and oftentimes it's that choice that we don't want to choose. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're getting rid of our image as we come to the end of our time together. And so I've also been working with a couple of my dear friends who are going through karmic loop cycles as well. And part of it is that they're in that place right now where they have to make a different choice. And every part of them says, oh, no, I don't want to make that choice. One friend is a little bit further along than the other. And she's recognizing it. She's knowing that she needs to make that different choice, and she's really working that. And there's that soul retrieval piece that needs to happen. The other friend is still attached to not wanting to make that different choice, and she hasn't done the soul retrieval part yet, which is fine. We're all where we want to be. Everybody gets to have free will and choice as to how they want these relationships to unfold. And sometimes they may be stuck in them, and they may find this person again in the next lifetime because they're not ready to make that different choice. And then oftentimes, and so the outcome can be so different. The outcome can be like you make that different choice, and it's an energetic choice. It's an energetic choice of forgiveness, an energetic choice of something that resurrects you, right? And so that's that resurrection piece. And then that resurrection to the incorporation, to the freedom to live. And then you can be in that union with that partner. Or maybe you clear it and you recognize, hey, me and this partner, we don't really fit. And this partner isn't really what I want, but we cleared this. And we have these different lives, like my first karmic loop. And that's all okay, because everybody gets to have exactly what they choose, right? So this is, and then from insanity, we can come all the way back to ourselves again. But it's almost, and however, I mean, because it's pushing through to the other side, and it's going through that which is so terrifying, that which is the most fearful place, but pushing through to the other side because there's something bigger that holds us there. There's something greater. It's the benevolent energy. It's God energy, or whatever the word you want to use. It is the high vibrational divine energy that says, yes, we're here to support you. We're here to help you evolve. We're here to help you learn your lessons of growth and opportunity to choose love, to choose forgiveness, to choose compassion in ways that we don't necessarily always know, right? So this concludes this part of karmic relationships and karmic loops, and being in going through the insane and insanity aspects of it. And then we bust through, and when we go to the other side of insanity, we see how much bigger the cosmos is, how much bigger our universe is, how much bigger we are, and how connected we are into that bigger aspect, how much we can expand into that. And poof, right? We can just fly into that, and we shift. So anyway, we are at the very end of our time together. It's always a pleasure to share this information. Also, there's a lot of information. Well, there's not a whole lot of information on karmic loops, but go ahead and take this and embody it, and take what works for you, and let it inform you in whatever way is best for you, and connect into it, because it's your connection that allows that to expand and bring you the truth that's lying within all of that for you. So, like every episode, I wish you a beautiful week. Go and enjoy yourselves. Happy midsummer. Reflect, and find the compassion, the love, and even the forgiveness for either within yourself and your relationships, or those you know that might be going through this as well. So go in peace. I'll see you guys next week. Thank you.
This has been Connected with your host, Andrea Dragonfly. Join Andrea each week on an extraordinary journey, exploring the consciousness of energy and how you are connected. Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.